Audie Murphy, part 2.
Part 2 of Unknown. We'll see if we get through it today.
Yeah. Do you remember where you left off? Because I didn't put it on the drive.
Yeah, I remember.
You remembered.
Yeah. Do you remember?
Speaking of courage, I think I remember, but I might need a little bit of refresher.
All right, fair enough.
What's up, man?
Not much, man. Just back for part 2, like you said, Audie Murphy.
Part 2. You're excited about this one?
Yeah. I'm excited about all of them.
A lot of research?
Audie Murphy. So, yeah, again, we're going to be note heavy here just so I don't leave anything out because there's so much.
I don't think people mind about the notes, dude.
Yeah, I know. I just like to try to go off memory a bit.
So, where do we leave off?
Cues. What do you remember?
I remember, like, the childhood and stuff like that, and then we got up to... God, can you refresh me?
Sicily, okay. Yeah. So for just to recap, we talked about Audie's childhood, obviously, and joining the army at 17. He lands in North Africa. He gets there after basically the combat has ended, essentially.
Yeah.
So then he's going to take part in the invasion of Sicily. So at this point, he's a combat veteran.
Yep.
They took part in the invasion of Sicily, which was successful. Now they're going to go up into the Italian mainland again. We've talked about it in other episodes. Supposed to be the soft underbelly of Europe. This is how we were going to get
Supposed to be easy.
Supposed to be easy. You know, we thought the Italians would give up and the defenses would collapse. But
is this where they got pinned down on the beach?
Yeah, that's Anzio Beach.
Anzio, that's right.
And Audie and his men will be there. Yeah. So Italy was horrible. Mud, mountain, and mules is the best way to describe it, which we have talked about several times.
So that's where we're at? We're at the beach?
So, no, not yet here. We're going to be at Salerno, a different beach. Okay. So, after taking the small island of Sicily, which is the soccer ball that the boot of Italy's kicking, if you want to look at it that way, now we're going to take part in the Italian mainland, which is going to be September 9th, 1943. Operation Avalanche, it was called.
Now, going into this, we thought it wasn't going to be an issue?
I'm sure the soldiers were smart enough to know that it would be, but Winston Churchill was the one that was the big one behind this push for Italy, and a lot of the troops, I don't know if they underestimated it. Like I said, we thought the Italians would surrender. You know, they have weak leadership and they're not the greatest army in the world, and the defense is going to fall apart. The Italians did fall apart and surrender, but the Germans had other plans. The Germans were well fortified, well defended, you know, very, very, very competent, serious soldiers, and they knew what they were doing, and they used that to pin down our troops, and they fought a hell of a fight there. Okay.
So what is Audie dealing with at this point?
So at this point, like I said, he's a combat vet. He cut his teeth on Sicily, all those dreams of glory and things he had in war. Now he's already to the reality, right? But he's still a little bit, I don't want to say fresh, but he still has some vigor in him to a degree. Him and his guys are still pushing forward. He's going to be with guys that have been in the war since North Africa, and they don't want anything to do with it. He's also going to be with replacements. He's also going to be with guys that have come from other units, guys that have seen combat in other areas. He's still, 5'5", 112 pounds, though, is the important thing there. So in the invasion of Salerno, the 3rd Infantry Division, which Audie's part of, is actually going to be held in reserve. So they're not going to be hitting the beach. They're not going to be part of this big landing. They're going to be, on the ships watching. And when they were coming in, there's 135,000 Germans in Italy, right?
Yeah.
That are waiting to fight. So we're hoping that we'll be able to land on the beaches, push inland, and start making progress, and then we'll start bringing in the reinforcements. Of course, it doesn't work that way. As soon as they hit the beaches, there's stiff resistance. So the 3rd Infantry Division, which is Audie's division, is going to be called in sooner than they expected.
Very similar to a previous episode.
Unfortunately, it's a lot of these episodes are going to be.
So they're expecting to chill out on the ship for days, and they end up getting called to the front quickly.
On all our Iwo Jima episodes, it's like that because we'll have, we'll bring all these troops and we'll have someone reserved to relieve each other, and that's like, man, they're getting slaughtered down there. And as a testament to that, Audie Murphy's, they land on the September 21st. It's about 10 days after the initial landing. There's been 1,200 American dead at that point. Over 1,000 dead Americans on this beach here, or on this little.
So are they pulling the bodies back to the?
A lot of them are, yeah. The wounded are going to be taken back to the hospital ships. They're going to be seeing them come back.
So our Audie's unit is up there, and he's witnessing this stuff come.
Yeah, so they're going to be on the ships. Stories. They're going to be watching. You're going to be, again, some of the rookies are going to be wondering what it's going to be like under fire. Some of the real hardcore veterans are just thinking, there's only one way to go home, and that's through Germany, so let's get it on. And then some of these other guys are going to be scared. And Audie actually talked about it. He said he never moved into combat without being scared. He said he was scared every single time.
Especially seeing that come back.
Every single time, though.
1,200 bodies?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
I mean...
And this is over the whole campaign, the 10 days, all these divisions. So they're going to be spread out everywhere.
It would be really weird to witness that, though, from a ship, because are there people on his ship going in?
Yeah.
So you're seeing these guys go to the beach.
Right.
And then in the same week, you're seeing those same guys either coming in on gurneys or dead.
Exactly. And you're watching
thing, huh?
the Navy firing.
Yeah.
And like, that's always biggest thing to me. When you're seeing those big Navy guns, if you go on YouTube and you watch those salvos and those boom, it's like, how could anything survive that? And then you know something did survive that, that's waiting there for you. That's a terrifying thing, right?
Yeah. How could they withstand that? Yeah, you're right. That you're talking enemy.
Exactly.
Yeah. Damn.
If these big Navy guns aren't killing them, what's me and my rifle gonna
Right.
do? But guess what? The ramp's going down. Get your ass off.
But what
and
an
get up there.
interesting dynamic, though, right? To be on the deck of that ship and just witness going and coming and going, damn, what are you seeing? And you're probably hearing stories like, dude, it's bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah. If they tell you, hey, you're in reserve and you guys are going to be moving up, and then they're like, hey, we need you now, then it's like, oh, God, what happened?
Yeah.
You know? So that's where they're going to be at. When they finally do land, like I said, they're going to push forward and they're going to be seeing all these bodies. They're going to be seeing this carnage on the beach. They're going to be seeing these wrecked landing craft. They're going to be seeing these wrecked vehicles. They're going to be seeing the MPs guiding trucks back and forth, moving up, trucks full of bodies coming back, and you're pushing forward. As soon as they start moving inland, they get pinned down, right? So now it's real. They're moving forward. They start to move up a slope, and the Germans open up on them with the machine gun. So everybody hits the ground, right?
Yeah.
Audie's looking to his left and his right, wondering what to do. You're waiting for someone with experience, and then all of a sudden, when the guy who ended up being one of his best friends, the guy by the name of Laddie Tipton from Tennessee, I believe, starts charging forward. Audie's 17 years old at this time. Laddie's 33 years old or 32 years old.
Audie's 17 right now?
Yeah, he's 17 still.
Oh
17,
God,
maybe close to
man.
18. But Laddie's an older guy that he looks up to. So as they're pinned down, Laddie takes charge and Laddie starts moving forward. Laddie starts throwing these grenades, right? So as Laddie pushes forward and starts to take that initiative, the Americans stand up with him. One of the troops that Audie's with gets cut down by machine gun fire. He gets shot in the throat and he goes down. Audie starts to follow Laddie's lead, and the two of them charge forward together. Audie's firing his rifle. Laddie's throwing grenades. He throws grenades into one position. A German jumps out with the pistol, and Audie kills him with the rifle. Laddie bounds forward again with his grenades. He throws grenade after grenade into the firing position, and he kills 5 enemy soldiers, right?
Damn.
So Audie's looking at Laddie. He's kind of looking up to him, right? He later said that Laddie taught him the meaning of courage, and he was the bravest man he ever knew. And one of the best compliments you can get, this is from Audie frickin' Murphy, later said, if the gates of hell burst open, Tipton would have stuck to his position. If the gates of hell burst open, Tipton would have stuck to his position.
So he was just a badass.
Not afraid of anything, this 33-year-old guy. So you can imagine these kind of guys that Audie's with and he's serving with, right? He's also making friends. He's got a Polish friend named Joe Seja, he's been in America 5 years. He's got that thick Polish accent, So he's starting to bond with these guys because even in this short amount of time, spending time on the ship, spending time in transport, wondering, worrying, talking about families, pushing forward on the beach, seeing who's going up. So he's getting close to these guys.
What a trippy thing too. Once you get to the beach and you're witnessing, like, damn, who's really in this?
Right.
And going, oh, damn, look at that. I didn't expect that guy to do it.
All the tough talk for months in training doesn't mean shit, but now you see when you hit the dirt and you see someone moving forward, that's the kind of guy you're going to stick with, right? And that's what he's seeing in Laddie, and that's what he's seeing in Joe Seja, and that's what he's seeing in some of these other guys that he's serving with, that he's with. But that's also what you're seeing because you're getting tight with these guys. And like I said, that guy that got cut down, that shot in the throat, that was somebody he knew too.
That was his buddy,
right?
yeah.
And again, it's not the movies. It's not a video game where the body disappears. You have to pick that body up and you have to carry it back to the road and you have to mark it for the grave marker. So you're seeing this guy who's bled out white, his throat's cut in half. You're having to probably support his head so he doesn't get even more ghoulishly disfigured as you're carrying him. 17, 18-year-old kids that are moving along.
That's insane.
It's early into the Italian campaign, but this is already starting to be just a war for feet and yards, right? The infantryman's war is the small picture. The infantryman's war is just pushing forward. So that's what they're going to be doing. And they're going to push forward until they get to what's called the Volturno River. And infantry, again, the enemy's in front of you, take them out. The enemy's in front of you, take them out. But when you get to a substantial river, you can't just cross as you'd like, right? So they get to this river and they have to take positions. We're waiting for this advance. We're waiting for everybody to kind of catch up. So they end up being in a cave for 3 days. Audie and his unit, they take positions in this cave. You have your scouting position. You go in. It's kind of a rest. You're out of the rain. You're out of the muck. But it smells like crap. The Germans have been in there. Their food's rotting and it's nasty. So you're kind of just miserable.
Oh, so you're taking their position.
You're taking their position where they had pushed back. Exactly. Okay. It's a weird, eerie environment. But in this 3 days they spend in the cave, when the nights are calm, you can hear the Germans on the other side. You can hear them talking. So they start to get in these little duels. You'll hear a position and you'll shoot, and they'll shoot back, and they'll yell challenges and things. There's artillery fire going on. But there's also this comradeship, like we were just talking about, that's going, Laddie's telling Audie about his 9-year-old daughter. He's got a little daughter at home. He's showing him the letters,
Damn.
Talking about, when are you coming home? I heard, Grandma says the war's ending soon. I miss you. I want to see you again. And Audie's telling Laddie about his mom that died, and they would say Audie would be close to tears because Audie's a kid at this point. He's 17 years old. Is the only thing that he had in his life is his mom is dead, and his little brothers are in an orphanage and stuff. Yeah. So these guys are bonding. The first couple of days, it's probably a nice rest. Try to dry out your feet. But the second day and into the third day, they're not getting any. They're not getting any supplies. So now they have food, but they have no water. There's nothing to drink, right? And if you go out of the cave, the Germans are going to shoot at you, essentially. So they're getting more and more tired. They're getting more and more bogged down. They're getting more and more miserable. And you're shooting back and forth, but you're in this crappy environment. So it's kind of. Thirst is overtaking you, okay? One of the soldiers actually on guard decides to take his canteen and he runs across and tries to go run down to the river because you're so thirsty. There's the rhyme of the ancient mariner, water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. Yeah. You're dog thirsty and you're hearing this river go by, right? So this guy goes, fuck it.
You can't get to it?
And he makes a run for it and the Germans shoot him with the machine gun and he collapses and the Americans are yelling like, get up. And they just keep shooting him and they keep pumping these rounds into him and they're watching him die miserably, right? So this is kind of the Italian campaign.
So they can't get to the water.
They can't get to the water because if you leave your covered and concealed position and you go down, the Germans have a fixed position on you too. They're going to be able to get you too, right? So they're stuck there until the Americans decide to make this big push, okay? So on October 13th, 1943, they finally make the push, and Audie's unit's actually held in reserve. The rest of the Americans are going to cross that river, and they're finally going to
How are they going to cross it?
Little boats. So you're going to have a feint in one place. You're going to have guys on little pontoon boats. You're going to be pulling across. You're going to have your guns. You're going to open up. We're going to be firing artillery. They're going to be shooting back. The Germans are going to open up.
Just to get across.
Just to get across. And you're going to try to send your real attack somewhere else. So hopefully they can't, configure everywhere that the battle's going to be at.
Jeez, man.
It's a hell of a thing being on a countryside getting shot at, but it's even worse when you're in a little boat and they know where you're at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a scary thing, and that's what ends up happening. But they end up making it across. There's 2 hours of artillery. We're just bombarding them, and then we finally send our troops across. In the 3rd Infantry Division, there was 300 men killed just trying to cross this one. I don't want to say insignificant, but this one
300?
river. 300 men killed. One river that's just one more day in this long, long war that's not going to end, right?
Oh, man.
In addition to this death everywhere that they're dealing with the cold, there's pouring rain, there's the mud in the hills like we've talked about, and then you get to the mountainside where it's craggy. And that's not just, my feet are slipping because they're wet. It's also, if artillery hits, it doesn't have to hit anywhere near you. If it hits that rock face and that rock face sends shrapnel into you, that's going to kill you just the same as anything else will, right?
Yeah.
Guys are exhausted. Guys are getting trench foot. We've already talked about Audie's physically a weak person, despite the fact that he's a warrior. He's going down with malaria. He's going down with sickness. So these guys are just exhausted. They're not getting food. They're having trouble breathing because their lungs are getting filled with, you're sleeping in caves and things like that. That's not a good way to be. You're having to sleep together to get warm, going days and days and days without even being dry. And that's the kind of... And then, like you always say, and that's not even to count the enemy. So this is the Italian campaign, and this is the war that they're in. So you can imagine the smell of thousands of guys who haven't been dry for weeks, right? Just marching and sweating and pushing forward together. Not to mention the blood, not to mention the grime and the food and everything else like that. And trench foot, man. Trench foot. Just
nasty.
Taking your socks off and your skin's coming with it.
Yeah.
And this is what these guys are going to be dealing with. So... After they take the Volturno River, they actually get sent back to the rear after 60 days of combat. Now, I glanced over this a lot because we have to for time's sake, but after 60 days on the front line, these guys are finally taken back into the rear. 60 days of not knowing where the enemy is, not knowing if you're going to live or die till the next day, not knowing if your friend's going to survive, not knowing what's going on in the big picture. Dude. 60 days, they're finally taken to the rear. Audie described it as men crawling with filth and sodden with weariness. Again, he mentions it a lot in interviews in his books of they were so tired they just didn't care. Like sometimes they were just too tired to, he said he was scared every time they would move into combat, into action. But in the big picture, it wasn't a fear, it was a weariness. It was just fatigue and, one foot over the other until you're just in a drunken haze of walking almost. You know what I mean?
Man, 2 months on the front.
So they get sent back to Naples for more training, again, because you don't go to rest on the Riviera.
Is that a nicer area?
It's a rear area.
So they can kind of
relax. They go back. The medics make them strip down naked, and they're checking them for sores and all these kinds of things, checking them for injuries, which, again, is humiliating.
Yeah.
That you're just, you're a pale, clammy, naked body in this mass.
You probably don't give too much of a shit at that point.
They don't give too much of a shit, but it just kind of reinforces the fact that you don't matter to a degree. Yep. Yeah, you're a number. And then they get some rest. They're out of combat, but they're just training. So they're doing amphibious assaults. They're training for amphibious assaults in this icy water too, though. So you can imagine that.
Yeah.
We know we're going to have another landing, so they're jumping in the water and they're freezing and they're getting cold. They're getting more replacements. So you're getting new guys from the States that are fresh-faced, and you're 60 days in combat, plus the invasion of Sicily, plus Africa, plus all these other things.
Damn.
These guys are replacing your buddies that are dying. Right?
Yeah.
You don't get replacements because they want you to have more people. You get replacements because people are dying. So every new body represents somebody that you lost, represents somebody that could have been you. You know what I mean? So that's another facet that you don't think about. And Audie talked about that later,
and then that's a new guy that comes in that you got to
Exactly. So they're not combat. I mean, they have training, but some of these guys were just pushed through, and then they're thrown into your unit. Factor. Exactly.
The guy that just died, man, he died for you. And now you got this new kid in. There's probably some resentment to it a little bit. Like, you replaced my buddy that I loved, that died for me, literally.
Definitely could be. Or
just the awkwardness of that, can I trust this new kid?
Right.
He hasn't been through what we've been through.
Actually, Audie talks about that too. And in one incident, Audie had some rank by now, but he still looks like a baby-faced kid, but he's a corporal or a sergeant. He gave a replacement an order, and it was to bury some dead cows, and the replacement said, you can't tell me what to do. I'm not digging any cows. And Audie said, you're going to do it. And then the other guys are kind of saying, you better do it. And the guy's telling Audie, like, you can't make me do shit. I don't care who you are. I'm not burying dead cows. So without hesitation, Audie socked him in the jaw, socked him on the stomach, and jumped on top of him and started beating his head to the crowd until they pulled him off. And then the guy's telling him, you can't hit me. I'm a private. You're a non-commissioned officer. And all the other guys are kind of like, up on the front, this is how things work. You're going to do exactly what the fuck we tell you to, right?
I kind of like that, though.
Yeah, but that's the difference between... You're dealing
with some post-traumatic stress. You're dealing with a guy that's probably...
Well, this is the 0 to 60 I talked about, though, right? We don't have to, I'm not going to sit here and bicker with you. We don't have time to do anything. I don't have time to go back and forth. I'm not going to explain everything to you. You're going to listen to me.
Explain what we've been through already.
I'm not going to explain to you why you have to bury a dead cow right now, because I'm not going to explain to you why I have to tell you to charge a machine gun later. If you don't listen to me now, you're not going to listen to me later. So you're going to listen, or I'm going to hurt you, and you're going to figure it out real fast, or you're going to die.
So did the guy jump in line?
Eventually he did, and they said he ended up turning into being a good soldier.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
You can imagine his point of view too, though.
Right.
He's coming to the front lines like,
he's probably scared too, right? And I don't want to say that's characteristic of Audie either, because I have the Audie Murphy fan club newsletter with all these stories, and one of them was a replacement talking about how he was in a replacement depot in France, and Audie came and picked him up, when he was a lieutenant, and he was saying that Audie was the greatest, and he was, I guess Audie came to the replacement depot and said, I need 10 guys, I want them all from Texas, and they were, the sergeant was pissed off, because he wasn't from Texas, so he sent him 8 from Texas and 2 from Tennessee or something, but he was telling him that Audie gave him all a speech, like, look, we'll keep you alive, just listen to us, we're here to help you, it's okay to be scared. Again, that's where he comes up with it. Every time I go into combat, I'm scared, but you better do something about it. When you're scared, it's time to do something about it.
Yeah.
So he did have he wasn't just this sadistic asshole that was punching people. It was just in that incident, this guy needed to learn what was going on.
And there's probably different learning tactics for each soldier, Yeah. And maybe it sounded like that guy needed to be punched in the mouth a little bit.
It sounds like it, yeah. Who knows what he did or didn't. But after they're done with this training, they're getting ready for the invasion of Anzio. This is what you were talking about earlier when we got stuck on the beach. Yeah, so we're trying to push up towards through Italy, but we get bogged down. We get bogged down at Monte Cassino. So we got to get behind the German line. So we end up landing at Anzio. And again, we're hoping this is going to be this big breakout. But we end up getting held down on the beach, and it's
3 months?
Something like that, yeah. So the invasion itself, the landing was horrendous, right? We lost a lot of guys, and then afterwards we didn't exploit our tactical advantage by pushing inland. We bogged down and tried to strengthen our defenses, and then the Germans were able to reinforce, and it became a long, long campaign that should not have been that long. Unfortunately for Audie, he actually had malaria. So when they were getting ready for the landing, he starts getting sicker and sicker, right?
Yep.
And they're telling him, hey, you need to go to the medics. But he's thinking in his head, I don't want anyone to think I'm a coward.
Yeah.
I don't want to miss out. So he finally blacks out, and they take him to the medics tent. So he actually missed the invasion of Anzio. He didn't take part. So Audie's going to get sent back to Naples, and then he's going to wake up to his to go back to his unit with these other replacements, right? And by now, he's been made a staff sergeant, and he's in charge of 3rd Platoon. When he lands on the beach, again, he's seeing all this carnage and stuff, and he's remembering his guys in his unit. Hey, what happened to where's my unit? He's trying to get to his unit. He's with all these brand new guys, and they're scared, and he's thinking, oh, God, what happened to my guys? Because look how bad this is, right?
Yeah.
Look at all these bodies, and now you're seeing the guys with white sheets. You're seeing with the bed sheets. You're seeing the wrecked crews and the wrecked tanks and the wrecked shell, all this stuff.
Yeah.
As they're walking inland, some German planes come over and dive bomb, and all the replacements hit the ground, and Audie stays standing up because he's smart enough. He knows they're going for the ships. They're not going for us. But you can imagine these scared-ass kids, and then they're with Audie, and he's just walking forward. He keeps moving inland, and he's passing these trucks. He's going forward on foot, and these trucks are coming back just stacked with bodies like cordwood, right? So again, what happened to my friends? He finally gets to his unit, and he starts getting, Seja, your Polish buddy, your best friend, he died. Seja's dead.
Damn.
And he says, well, what happened to him? And the guy goes, how the fuck do I know? I'm not, I'm going to go back, leave me alone. Like, it's insignificant to them. But
Yeah.
Seja's dead. Other guys are wounded. Other guys have been moved on. So we talked about last time, he's forming all these friendships, and he's starting with all these guys. They're dwindling away, right? They're dwindling away by the time we get to Anzio. He's made a staff sergeant, and they say, hey, you want to go on a patrol? And he says, yeah. So he starts leading these recon patrols at night because we're bogged down in our position. So he's taking these guys out. They said Audie's innate combat senses were so good that he could smell the Germans. He could smell their tobacco before anyone else could see or hear them. And he's such a crack shot with the rifle that he kind of started becoming legendary in the unit, right?
Yeah.
They'd be walking, and he'd, hold on. And they'd be like, what? And he could see things. And Spec McClure, his buddy, years after the war, said he would do the same thing. He'd say, hey, you see that bird over there? And he'd be like, what bird? What the hell are you talking about? But he had these keen senses, this keen sense of smell, this keen sense of vision. He could supposedly differentiate German tobacco from American tobacco and sense these patrols. So he's able to lead these successful patrols. So these guys start gravitating towards him. You want to be around this guy. You want to be around this guy that every time he fires his rifle, he's hitting home.
It's almost like a battle charisma.
Exactly. And he's 17, and he looks 14 at this time, too,
crazy,
which is funny. On January 30th, 1944, they finally break out of Anzio. The 3rd Division starts pushing forward, and they end up in a 3-day fight at a place called Cisterna. This is where they're pinned down by interlocking gunfire. And this is where, if you remember Sylvester Anselok from the Netflix Medal of Honor documentary, that's Audie Murphy witnesses his action, and he writes about it in his book.
Witnessed Sylvester.
Audie witnessed Sylvester Anselok. He actually wrote one of the recommendations for the Medal of Honor citation.
We'll have to do an episode on that because that's a good one.
Yeah.
But he basically ran across open field to 2 machine gun positions.
Right, after being wounded multiple times.
It was just amazing. And Audie actually saw that with his own eyes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Is that before Audie? That's before a lot of Audie's...
Yeah, Audie hasn't earned a single Valor medal at this point. So they're all going to come in rapid succession.
And now that makes you wonder, like, Valor that you've talked about before that's inspired by other Valor, like maybe Audie witnessing that.
Perhaps. By this point, I think he's already weary, and he's already indoctrinated into combat. It's just one more thing, but it's just...
when you witness something like that, though, it's got to be...
Recognizing courage from another courageous human being. At this point, they've been 2 months of defensive fighting in the trenches, right? In Anzio, and this is Audie and everybody else. And again, I'm glancing over this for time's sake. Sitting in trenches that you dug, waiting for the Germans to bomb you, waiting for the artillery, just your feet are sogging. So it's good to move forward. They're happy to finally be pushing forward, right? They're in the rain. They're in this constant, miserable state of cold and muddiness. But in March, the rains finally stop and the roads dry out. So what does that mean?
Heat.
It means heat, but normally you'd think, oh, great, we're dry now, right? But the bad thing about the rain stopping and those muddy roads not being muddy is now the Germans can bring in more artillery and more supplies. So despite all this good stuff that's going on with the roads drying out, now we have fear of more German artillery coming in. So again, for the infantry, nothing's good. Rain's bad, dry's bad. Heat's bad, cold's bad. Because if it's good for you, it's good for the enemy in a lot of these senses. As they're moving forward, again, this is just a day-by-day struggle. Guys are getting killed by sniper fire. Guys are getting killed by machine gun fire. We're fighting back. We're doing things too. But in March, they end up finding themselves in an observation post. And like I said, all our troops are still on the Anzio beachhead area. Audie's up front with his guys in an observation post with his binoculars, and he sees the worst thing that you would ever want to see. He sees a German Tiger tank coming towards the American lines, and he's in a safe position, and he looks, and then he sees 20 more tanks behind it, right?
Oh, damn.
So infantrymen can't fight tanks. This is death to everybody that's on the ground. Because the roads are still fairly muddy, they have to stay on this main road. So Audie, who again, 17 or 18 years old at this time, calls for fire. Okay, he's a staff sergeant. He's only been in the Army a couple years at this point, but he's able to call for fire. So he starts calling in that artillery fire. And this is what we've talked about before. Being successful in combat isn't just being brave. It's not just being tough. It's not being strong. It's skills, right?
Yeah.
He's directing. He's looking at a map. He's looking at the grid squares. He's calling to the artillery. He's sending them grid coordinates. They're firing back. He's walking this fire in to protect his guys, right?
Yeah. And those can take out the tanks?
These can take out the tanks. Artillery can take out houses and buildings and everything. So he's able to walk it in, and he hits that front tank. Boom, and that tank blows up, and that tank stops. The tank treads are knocked off, and it blocks the road. And as soon as that tank gets hit, the hatch opens up, and the Germans jump out and start running. And Audie picks up his rifle, and he starts firing, and he cuts them down from his position, right? So he's killing these Germans as they're exiting the tank. Because that tank's blocking the road and the other Germans are vulnerable, the other tanks back off. So he's able, by his skill and by his abilities with this artillery, he's able to protect that road and to protect all those troops that are behind there, right?
Damn.
As night falls, though, he realizes that tank isn't going to stay there. The Germans are going to come recover it, or they're going to fix it. So I got to do something about it, okay? Somebody's got to do something about it, so it might as well be me. So Audie takes a patrol, including his buddy Laddie, and they move up to the tank. They decide, we're going to destroy this tank so bad that nobody can come get it. While they're creeping up to the tank, they can hear the wrenches and stuff. They can hear the people working on it. So they decide they're going to throw these Molotov cocktails at it, basically. Oh, so you can imagine an Italian night, you're sneaking up, you're moving. When he's about 100 yards from the tank, a football field away, he orders everybody else, stay here, I'm going. So he crawls forward, and he starts throwing these Molotov cocktails at the tank, and it doesn't do anything. So he throws grenades inside the hatch, and then he starts firing rifle grenades at the tank treads. As he does this, every German in the area opens up on him. So they just start firing machine guns at him, but he's able to effectively single-handedly destroy this tank. He knocks the treads off it so bad that that tank is unrecoverable. And then he runs back as the Germans are firing machine guns over him and the tracers are going over his head. And this is his first Valor Medal that he's going to get. For this action, he's going to get the Bronze Star with V, essentially, which is a Bronze Star for Valor. And his citation states, on 2 March 1944 on the Anzio beachhead, First Lieutenant Murphy crept 100 yards over flat open terrain during a firefight between his small patrol and a group of Germans to a point 50 yards from a partly disabled tank. Taking careful aim, he fired several rifle grenades at the tank, hitting and completely destroying it. Then, when a great many enemy machine guns in the sector opened up, he led his men through the bullet-swept area to safety. So again, this is just a Bronze Star with a V. This is just one day in Audie Murphy's life. But had he not stopped that tank with the artillery fire, 20 tanks would have been able to attack the American position. Yeah. They might have been able to push us back to the beach. Once they retreated, had he not destroyed that tank, again, that road would have been opened up. And if you look at it the other way, had he been killed in that, he would have been forgotten to history, right? Yep. He would have just been another brave soldier like all these other guys. But by now, this 5'5", 112 guy has shown his courage, and he's shown his leadership, and he's shown all these guys. So all these guys are looking up to him, and they're
he's willing to do the hard work.
He's willing to do the hard work, and he's successful at it. He's badass. He's destroying tanks. He's destroying men, and he's surviving it, right? He's everything you'd want in a warrior, except 2 weeks later, he gets influenza, which is just the flu, and he's knocked out again because his body's so physically weak. So he's blacked out with influenza. Eventually, he makes it back to his unit. On May 21st, 1944, at the Battle of Cisterna, him and his unit are moving forward, and they get attacked by some planes. Unfortunately, it's not the Germans. They actually take casualties from friendly fire. So this is another part of combat that is just daily life for guys on the European front, right? The Air Corps mistakes them for the Germans. They bomb them. And then again, we're back into Cisterna where we talked about...
Bombs his own unit?
Bombs his own unit. So not only are you dealing with the enemy and the conditions... Guys are getting killed by Americans troops because it's so hard to differentiate, you know, and it's just the fog of war, as we often talked about. So it's doubly tragic to not only die, but to die by your own guys, you know, and they probably never even knew they did it at that point.
Damn, that's a whole nother stress.
That's I think that'd be the worst thing. You know?
I think so too.
And if you were the pilots and you later found out.
Imagine that. Yeah, you have to live with that forever.
Yeah. War in the European front, war on the Italian campaign is just a matter of pushing forward. So again, they keep pushing forward. And June 1st, they attack a railroad position. They take it on the next day. The Germans are fighting a rearguard action. And on June 4th, 1944, they finally take Rome. So Rome falls. Rome's the capital of Italy. Italy was one of the enemies. So it's this big celebration. Again, historically looking back, Rome was a very little military value. We should have pushed forward and trapped the Germans, but we didn't. We wanted Rome. We wanted the big victory. We wanted the big celebration, and that cost
Sounds better.
Yeah.
So that's just, who makes that decision?
That was General, I think it was Clark. I'm not sure offhand.
So
but
that
it's
was
the
a
general.
mistake looking back.
Absolutely, it was a mistake. I think a lot of people knew it at the time,
Did
too.
they?
Yeah.
So they just wanted it for the newspapers? Or?
For the newspapers and to say, we took this capital and the Americans took it, rather than pushing past it and just letting it fall to whomever taking it. But that's part of the politics of war, too, you know? So because of that, though, a lot of Germans were able to escape. Audie and his unit were given leave. They were sent back to Rome for celebration, basically. So they're going to take part in those celebrations. Well, it's supposed to be. But Audie wrote in his book, "We prowl through Rome like ghosts. We can have no hope until the war is ended. Thinking of the men on the fighting fronts, I grow lonely on the streets of Rome." And he wrote that he wasn't impressed with Rome because, you know, you hear the immortal city, it's all, you know, all these stories. But when he's walking around, he's seeing guys sleeping in tents. There's bugs, there's lice, the civilians are starving. So it's miserable to him. And he's also thinking, like I said, yeah, you get a 2-week leave. That's nice. But, you know, you have to go back to combat at some point. So it's just going to be bearing on you.
And then the other thing I notice with a lot of our guys is when they're off, they're almost like feeling guilty that they'd rather be on the lines because they know there's somebody out there struggling.
Right. That's that survivor's guilt. And that's why he said, thinking of the men on the fighting fronts, I grow lonely. Because, you know, every warm bath you take, somebody's miserable. And every you know, good piece of food you eat, somebody up there is miserable.
Not only are somebody's miserable, but you've been that miserable one.
Right. Yeah,
you know, and so you can relate to it.
Exactly. And you feel like you should be with them.
Yeah.
You know, and there's guys that not everybody's back there. So it's hard to celebrate, and that's what he has. And again, that's that weariness that he talked about.
Yeah.
That weariness that follows him through the war. So after Rome, they end up getting sent back to Naples for 2 more weeks of amphibious training, and then he turns 19 years old. So at this point, he's 19. They get training. He gets training as an artillery spotter, which he's already been doing, as we learned in his Brawl Star with V, but he's getting even more and more adept at that. And then they're going to take part in the invasion of France. So like we've talked about in other episodes, we're pushing up, and then June 6, 1944, we invade D-Day, Normandy, and then a lot of the troops are pulling out of Italy, and they took part in Operation Dragoon, which is the invasion of southern France. So we're trying to close the doors on the Germans. We're trying to force them back while the Russians are pushing in from the east, and we're trying to push in from the west. So we're taking Italy. We're trying to go in through France as well, and that's where he's
all on foot.
All on foot. Yeah, you're getting trucks when you can, or you're walking, and walking's not easy because, as you can see, once a month, Audie seems to fall out on the side of the road with either malaria or influenza, or just diarrhea or whatever that may be. Your feet are aching.
And there's eating shitty food.
Yeah, I didn't ever experience anything like that, but in basic training, boot camp, or even in the field, you do road marches. So you get, this is how you get from there. You do 5 marches, 10 miles, 25 miles, and it's awful. It's freaking awful. And when you're on lack of sleep.
25 miles?
Yeah, 25 miles.
Road marches?
Yeah. And the guys in Korea, the Manchu, they do 28 milers just to, for status and stuff. Different units will do more. A lot of the light fighter units, 25th Infantry, 101st, they'll do them. They don't have as much weight on their back, but they'll march all day, every day. That's all they do.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's just when you're tired and you're fatigued and you're hungry, you feel like you're asleep when you're walking. You can literally fall asleep while you're walking, like every step will wake you back, but you're in this constant haze, and that's what they're in too, right? That's what they're moving forward, but you're moving forward to the sounds of the guns. So it's just, and you have to be expected to fight when you get there. You have to snap back into it.
Nothing like that.
Yeah, they're eating greasy canned food, or they're eating, whatever kinds of mermites and stuff they can get up to the line, but none of it's going to be good.
Yeah.
And again, even when you go back, when he was in Rome, him and his buddy, they shot and killed a chicken that was just wandering the streets and stripped it and, ate it with an Italian family just to try to get some real meat in their bodies, Damn.
It's like living in poverty on the line.
Yeah, it'd be like, high school football players or something, you're dealing with all this practice stuff. Now go do it on crappy food and don't get to sleep and everything too, and just see how that would affect you.
How your performance struggles.
Right. Yeah. Or a construction worker or something, hey, construction equipment, you can't have a drop of alcohol because that's going to affect you and you could die. Okay, well, fine. How about you don't sleep? You sleep 10 hours for a week, it's gonna wear on you. And then you go day after day and week after week, and the weeks turn to month and the months turn to years, and this campaign just never ever stops.
Jesus, man. So miserable.
Yeah. So now he's been in North Africa. He's been at Sicily. He's been Salerno. He's been Anzio. He's pushed up Italy, and now they're going to take part in Operation Dragoon. Like I said, they're going to come ashore after the paratroopers
So the paratroopers go behind the lines?
Yeah, the paratroopers are generally going to go first, and then they're going to come forward after. So when they land, there's actually going to be little opposition. The Germans are surprised, so they're pushing forward and they're making inland. You know, they've been used to being bogged down in Italy, and now they're in France, and they're like, wow, we're moving hundreds of yards at a time. The only casualties they're really taking are going to be stepping on landmines. Which is a nice change for these guys, but it's. The big picture is still ahead of you, right? Yeah. We're making headroads, but we still have a long way to go, and they know it. The Germans were surprised, so they were able to go. So we have to take advantage of this. We have to take advantage of our surprise and get in so we don't get bogged down like we do in Anzio.
Yeah,
then you're going to have that same, As they're moving, they're going to be under this hot Mediterranean sun now, No more rain, but now you have that heat. Now you have that sweat. Now you're wearing that gear.
Dehydrated.
Again, those metal straps or things are going to be digging into you. Your helmet's going to be heavy on your head. You're trying to eat as you walk, and you're just miserable. We don't talk about it a lot, but going to the bathroom, you go out to the side of the road and you have to defecate or do your business or things. It's not like you have a roll of toilet paper with you either, so you're trying to figure out those things, and then you're getting chafed as you're walking and dealing with all that stuff.
Where are they sleeping at? They just find like a safe location to kind of...
It depends on where you're at and what you're doing. Yeah, if you're just pushing forward, you might sleep on the side of the road. If you're part of like the rear, you're going to be in a camp somewhere. You might even have tents. If you're on the front line, you're going to be in foxholes.
And what's the difference between the front and the rear?
So the front is where the enemy is. So the enemy is going to have a defense set up, right? So...
But I mean in mileage.
It depends. It could be there's areas where the front is fluid. If you're within a mile or so of the front, you're on guard all the way. If you're a couple miles back, you can be a little more secure. But it doesn't take much for a German advance to push through.
So that hot front line is just constantly moving.
Correct.
As long as you're doing well.
Yeah.
And
or it's moving the other way if you're not doing well.
The whole horde is going accordingly.
Exactly.
So you go push, and then, oh, God, we got to fall back.
Yeah, so the infantry's pushing, and then behind them you'll have the artillery guys and stuff. That's why they call the infantry the tip of the spear, and then the shaft of the spear that's going all the way back. You're going to have your supply guys and your trucks and everything.
Shooting over, and then that whole cloud is just moving.
Yeah, your infantry and your combat engineers and your frontline guys and all those.
You're going
through
different terrains, mountains, hills, and just figuring it out as you go.
Exactly. And you're suffering with the terrain.
Man.
So as they're pushing inland on France, Audie and his guys are ascending a hill. As they're walking, the guy in front of Audie gets cut down. They start, the nice Mediterranean day opens up with machine gun fire. You're hearing that sound, and then you see the guy in front of you go down. Audie Murphy crouches. He pushes past, and he crouches and runs. He's trying to get everybody, come on, let's go. Let's push towards these machine gun, but everybody else is pinned down, right? Audie Murphy hits the ground, and the enemy's shooting machine gun fire over his head. He's looking, and he's trying to assess. Everybody else is glued to the ground. Some of these guys are newer, some of them are veterans, but if you pop your head up, you may die.
Yeah.
So Audie Murphy's looking around, and this is where his natural combat instincts kind of take over, right? So he looks to his side, and he sees a ravine. And he sees the depression, and knowing how those machine guns work and where they're pinned down, he's able to low crawl into this position, and he starts snaking around, and he's able to pop up, and he kills 2 German soldiers, which relieves the pressure on all these guys that are pinned down. But there's more Germans on the hill. This is just the tip of that iceberg, right?
Yeah.
So he takes out that first position, and then he's looking up, and there's just German foxholes all over this that are pinning these guys down. And right now, Audie's the only one moving. He said later that in combat, things would just slow down for him, right?
Yeah.
So everybody else is in panic, but Audie's in this almost a slow motion mode. So he's looking around, and things are getting real clear for him. And he realizes, I can't take this hill with my carbine. So he runs down the hill. He takes his little ravine, and he goes back, and he gets a machine gun. And then he starts firing up. He starts moving up the hill, and he's shooting at everything he sees. Every time he sees the German, he starts firing rounds with his machine gun, and he's using that gully. 'Cause he's got 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 where they can't get to him. So they're concentrated on the ground, and Audie's moving up his ravine, and he's firing from position to position, and he's taking out these German soldiers.
And they don't see him.
They don't see him, and some of them do, and by the time they see him, he's putting rounds downrange, and he knows he's hitting him because he can hear him screaming, right?
Yeah.
They're close enough that he's hearing these Germans die, but he's putting down these rounds. And all the Americans, who are brave soldiers too, are stuck down there, and Audie's the only one moving on the ground.
And they're witnessing it.
They're witnessing this, and Audie's pushing forward again. And as Audie pushes forward, he finally hears somebody running up to his side, and it's his buddy Laddie.
Of course.
And yeah, and as Laddie's there, Laddie gets shot in the ear, and he just kind of laughs it off. And Audie's yelling at him, "Get down!" And in the book, and I don't know how true it is, Laddie tells him, "What are you trying to do? Earn yourself a wooden cross?" And then he makes a comment like, "Hey, is this a private war, or can I join?" You know, that's the kind of thing. So the two of them start bounding forward together. Everybody's down below, but Audie and this guy who's basically taught him courage, they start bounding from position to position. You know what bounding is?
Is that cover?
Yeah, so basically,
run, cover, run.
We don't both run up together. You're going to put down fire, and I'm going to move forward while their heads are down.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put down fire, and you're going to move forward. And Laddie likes the grenades, so Laddie's already been shot in the ear, but this is a man of courage as well, right? Laddie's firing grenades while Audie's pushing forward. Rounds are flying over their heads. Laddie starts firing. The Germans pop up. Audie fires 2 rounds. Pop, pop, shouts the Germans in the head. 2 headshots with his carbines. When he gets to a foxhole, Laddie jumps in, so the both of them are in a foxhole, and they're facing a German position. There's only a couple more left on the hill, and then the Germans surrender, okay? So single-handedly, Audie and Laddie have taken up to this point. The Germans start yelling, you know, "Kamerad, Kamerad," meaning friend, like, we surrender, we surrender. And Laddie says, "Hey, they're surrendering." And Audie says, "Stay down. It's a trick." And Laddie stands up, and the German sniper opens up, and he shoots Laddie through the chest, and Laddie falls down. He lands on Audie. And the last thing he says is "Murph," and then Audie feels the life slipping away from him, essentially. So Audie's screaming at him, and he later wrote in his book that he was screaming like a madman. Laddie was shot through the chest, and Audie started crying. It was the first time since his mother died that he cried, and he's screaming at the top of his lungs, "Medic, medic, help!" But nobody can help, and he feels him, and he's, you know, smart enough to know when someone's dying. He's looking around, and there's not a drop of blood on him. There's just a single bullet hole, which is bad.
Yeah.
And then he says he feels him growing cold under him. He feels the life sleeping away, and he knows that no one can help him, and even if they could, they can't get to him, right?
Yeah.
Even if a medic could help him, which they can't get to his position.
So the Germans were just bullshitting right there?
The Germans were luring them into a false sense of security, right? So this makes something in Audie snap. So Audie, it's been described as he fought like a berserker. Audie flips out, basically, because they did what they just did. He counterattacks like a berserker. He bursts from his foxhole, and he's throwing grenades at this position. He starts firing grenades and firing his carbine. He rushes from position to position, almost on top of the Germans, and he's shooting them. He grabs his BAR, and he starts firing into the position that killed the...
What's a BAR?
A Browning automatic rifle.
Okay.
So he takes the first position, and then when he gets to the sniper hole where that actually shot Laddie, he just starts raking him with machine gun fire with his fire. And after they die, he rakes him again. He said later, "I remember the experience as I do a nightmare. A demon seems to have entered my body. My whole body is concentrated on killing. As the lacerated bodies flop and squirm, I rake them again. I do not stop firing while there's a quiver left into them." So for 2 more hours, Audie single-handedly goes from position to position with his BAR, with the German weapons, just firing. Just lost his best buddy, and he single-handedly takes this hill. After a 2-hour firefight, he has an adrenaline dump, like we've talked about. So he crawls back to Laddie's position, and he sees Laddie laying there, and the first thing he thinks about is his 9-year-old daughter. So he takes Laddie's pack, and he puts it under his head so he has a pillow. And then he said he curled up on the ground, and he just started crying. He just started bawling like a baby.
And Laddie's already dead
there.
at this
Yeah,
point?
Laddie's long dead. Laddie's turning cold there. For his actions, he was later awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, which is
for that action?
Distinguished Service Cross, which is second to the Medal of Honor. And here's his citation on that. With the first wave of the assault infantry at 0800 hours on 15th August 1944, until halted by intense machine gun and small arms fire from a boulder-covered hill to his front, leaving his men in a covered position, he dashed 40 yards through withering fire to a draw. Using the defilated route, he went back towards the beaches, found a light machine gun squad, and returning up a rocky hill, placed the machine gun in a position 75 yards in advance of his platoon. Again, he's moving in combat and going back down and pushing back up. In the duel which ensued, Lieutenant Murphy silenced the enemy weapon, killed 2 of the crew, and wounded a 3rd. As he proceeded further up the draw, 2 Germans advanced towards him. Quickly destroying both of them, he dashed up the draw alone towards the enemy's strong point. disregarding bullets which glanced off the rocks around him and hand grenades which exploded 15 yards away. Closing in, he wounded 2 Germans with carbine fire, killed 2 more in a fierce, brief firefight, and forced the remaining 5 to surrender. His extraordinary heroism resulted in the capture of a fiercely contested enemy hill and the annihilation and capture of the entire enemy garrison. And then it goes on with the usual there. But single-handedly capturing I shouldn't say single-handedly because Laddie helped him, but he single-handedly captured this hill when all was said and done, right? This whole fortified position that was stopping this American advance, the only 1 and 2 people moving at that time was Audie. And again, he's 19 years old at this point. He's already earned a Bronze Star with V for Valor, and now he has a Distinguished Service Cross.
Laddie's 34, 35.
Laddie's 33 years old when he died. Jeez, at the time of his death, and his daughter was 9. Yeah. Ugh. And Audie's 19 years old.
Damn. And he's telling him, don't get up.
Yeah, don't get up. Boom. And then he gets up, and then he literally fell on top of him. He was on top of him on the hole. And Audie had been in combat quite a bit at this time, so you know what death looks like, and you know this guy's not surviving it. And again, he talked about this extensively after. He said that was the first time he was irrational, because usually he knew, someone's dead, but he said he was screaming like a madman, somebody help me, help me, help me, and that's not his character, right? He usually helps himself.
How many of these actions, man, that we've done, did the enemy killing somebody motivate it? Quite a few.
Oh, yeah, quite a few.
You know what I mean? That's where their buddy dies and they go freaking ham, dude.
Well, that's when something becomes personal in you, right? And that's when you lose that sense of, I just want to stay alive, and it becomes, I want to actually exact some vengeance and exact some revenge. But
what
again,
a motivator, huh?
The war doesn't end because your buddy died.
Yeah.
And the war doesn't end because you get a Distinguished Service Cross and a Bronze Star with V for Valor. So they keep pushing forward, right? They're having success. This isn't like Italy where they're bogged down. They're liberating town after town after town. Again, Audie's men, you can just read the stories of them about how they looked up to him. In one of their advances, Audie saw sunlight off in the distance. He saw a reflection of sunlight, and it turned out to be the glass of an artillery piece. Somebody had their binoculars up. So Audie decides to take his patrol and attack. So he leads this brief attack on this German position, and the Germans surrendered. He was able to take this position by himself. He fires on the German who's on the artillery piece. This is insignificant as far as medals go, but if they hadn't taken this is artillery pieces that's going to attack these guys behind them.
Yeah.
But Audie sees it with his senses. He's able to see, hey, there's a glint of glass over there. That doesn't make sense. Let's sneak around, and they catch the Germans off guard.
And that's the guy who's glass in to find coordinates.
Exactly. And when they move up, they go to Audie fires in, and the German officer comes out to surrender. At this point, Audie's still a staff sergeant. His citation said lieutenant because he was later promoted. But the German officer says, "Where's your officer? I'm only surrendering to an officer," because he sees Audie, and Audie's a 19-year-old that looks like a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
And Audie says, "You're going to surrender to me." And the German is defiant, so he throws his pistol down on the ground. And then Audie says he's got basically 10 guys at gunpoint, and this German just disrespected him basically. So Audie tells him, "You have 10 seconds to pick that up, or I'm going to kill you." And he said he wished he had his Tommy gun because he knew if the German would have done something, he probably couldn't have killed all 10 of them. But something in Audie's eyes made the German reach over and pick the gun up and hand it to him. Yeah, he said, "Pick that gun up like a goddamn gentleman and hand it to me, or I'm going to kill you in 10 seconds." And he did. Yeah. The advance is only slowed down by a shortage of trucks and gasoline. We were pushing forward so fast that they actually ran out of gas to make this attack. That's how successful we're being. But the Germans are still fighting. One morning they came up and they find 2 88s, which are, again, these big cannons that are causing all this devastation. Germans fired airburst directly at the Americans. So instead of these shells going up, when Audie and his unit come across them, they lower their guns and they start firing airburst directly on top of them. One of the Germans climbs up onto an artillery piece, and him and Audie Murphy fire at each other simultaneously. The German fires so close, dirt hits Audie in the eye, but he fires and he shoots the German through the heart and kills him in one instant, right? Audie crawls forward, and he sees, again, now his patrol is running all over the place, and now the Germans are running all over the place. They're trying to get in position. Audie sees a pile of artillery shells, these German 88 shells. So he fires in a bazooka into the shells, and he blows up the whole position with all these 88 shells blowing up. And then the Germans scattered, enabling them to take this position. So it's just one action after one action after one action.
His guys have to be looking at him like he's a psycho.
Oh, yeah. And if you're the new guys, you have to be like, holy shit, I want to follow this guy, right?
Especially the guy that he beat up, huh? He's
exactly.
going, damn, I can't believe I said that to him.
I think I'm going to shut my mouth. Maybe I'll tell the next guy to shut his mouth so he doesn't do it too. Their open field push turns into going through villages to house. So Audie's using a Tommy gun. This is the kind of combat they're facing, kicking open doors and shooting the Germans, and the Germans are firing out of windows and dumping bodies out and everything. There's dead Germans everywhere. There's dead horses. There's dead equipment. We talked about it in the Barger episode, just that rotting flesh and just that stench of death and smoke and grime that's going everywhere.
And there's civilians in this too?
Yeah, there's civilians that are being murdered. There's civilians that are being caught in the crossfire. There's civilians that are friendly. There's civilians that are enemy, right? Because they don't know who to trust either. So it's just war's a terrible thing, know. When they push forward, they actually make it all the way to the Rhine, which is the river separating Germany. When they're going to get in, Audie's at a roadblock, and he's talking to another soldier, and a mortar actually lands, and it kills the guy right beside him, and he wakes up. Audie gets knocked out, and he looks up, and his leg's been lacerated. It knocked the heel off his boot, so he finally gets wounded after being knocked unconscious. It lacerates his foot, and it blows his heel off, and like I said, it killed the guy he was just talking to, so showing you how precarious life is here. And this is in a rear position, right?
Having a conversation, and then
having a conversation, yeah. So he gets sent back. As soon as his foot heals up, he's back on the line. The going became slow. As they start getting towards Germany, the Germans start putting up much, much more of a fight, right?
Yeah.
Because now they're in the German homeland. Again, Audie and his men take out another German position, but by now we're back almost in that Italian-style fighting where we're in that rocky terrain. In one incident, the Germans push back, and again, this isn't in his book. This is from another soldier. One night, the Germans broke through the lines. They were all laying there asleep, and the Germans broke through the lines, and everybody's in panic, and everybody's starting to run. Everyone's falling back, including Audie, but Audie grabs a case of hand grenades, and as he's running, he's just throwing the grenades behind him, holding off the attack. The survivor said that Audie Murphy fought off the attack practically by himself and basically saved everyone that was there. And again, he didn't get a medal for that. No one even mentioned it. He didn't mention it anywhere. Just this other guy mentioned it, right? Everybody else is in panic mode. Oh my God, the Germans are breaking through. Audie's like, okay, we better get out of here, but let's do something about it. Let's slow their retreat. So he's running with a case of grenades, throwing these grenades behind him, and he's actually able to protect his guys by doing that.
He's like a doer, dude.
Yeah,
it's like, I'm not just going to run away. If we're going to run away, we got to do it effectively.
Right.
He's thinking of problem solving instead of panic.
Exactly, and that's that calmness. That's what we talked. Like he said, things would slow down for him in combat. So everybody else is just, oh my God, what do I do? And he's like, okay, what's the best option in this horrible situation? Right. They end up pushing forward again. They attack a town. Their attack's pushed back and with heavy losses. So he's seeing these dead bodies. By this point, he's seen hundreds of dead Americans, hundreds of dead Germans. It's Latholi. I'm not sure how to say it. In the book, he says, I felt burnt out, emotionally and physically exhausted. Let the hill be strewn with corpses so long as I don't have to turn over their bodies and find the familiar face of a friend. After we've been pushing all the way forward to France, now we're getting into Germany, and now we're bogged down, right? Now every inch we can't get. So again, he's lost most of his friends. His best friend's dead. His other, Sage's dead. All these other guys he served with, all these guys. He's one of the only ones left in his unit from North Africa. Damn. So he's saying, if they have to die, let them die face down because I don't even want to see their faces anymore. I'm just over it, right? But he's still the leader, right? He's still that guy. So they get they get pinned down in this area. The Germans are held up in a quarry, and the battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Pollock, decides, I have to go up to the front lines, and I have to see what's holding us up because we need to get through, right? The whole line is waiting on us, and we're stuck here. So Lieutenant Colonel Pollock takes 3 officers and 4 enlisted guys, and they're going up the hill to see what was going on. Audie kind of watches the patrol go, and he realizes that's probably not a good idea. They're going to get killed. So Audie decides, I'm going to follow them. So Audie follows them on foot, right? So, of course, Lieutenant Colonel Pollock advances, and as soon as they get into a position, the Germans ambush them from a concealed position. So the Germans open up with machine gun fire. They hit the patrol. Everybody gets out, and they're crouched down. This is the battalion commander. He's pinned down, and he's trying to figure out what to do. If they move forward, the Germans will kill him. If they fall back, they'll kill him. If they go left or right, they're just pinned down, right? The Americans are scrambling. They're looking around. They're trying to figure out what to do. And then Pollock hears a voice, and it's Audie. Audie had snuck up behind the patrol, and he was on the high ground beside him. So he starts yelling out. He says, Lieutenant Colonel. And then Pollock realizes, like, oh my God, like this guy's he's got a plan, and he can do something about it. So under the sound of battle, under all this chaos and confusion, Audie starts telling everybody what to do. You stay down, you stay here. And he starts calling everybody's name out just to give them kind of reassurance, like Donnie, getting a roll call, right? And then all of a sudden, While the Germans are focused on them, Audie charges forward from behind a tree throwing grenades. He starts throwing his grenades and he starts firing his carbine, and he's able to take this enemy position, save the lieutenant colonel, and save everybody else. Jeez. For this action, he was awarded the Silver Star.
Oh my gosh.
So I'll skip into it. On the morning of 2 October of 1944, near a position in France, I'm not going to try.
Yeah.
Quarry. You always make me try anyway. First Lieutenant Murphy inched his way over rugged, uneven terrain toward an enemy machine gun which had surprised a group of officers on reconnaissance. Getting to within 15 yards of the German gun, Murphy stood up and, disregarding a burst of enemy fire delivered at such close range and which miraculously missed him, flung 2 hand grenades into the enemy gun position, killing 4 Germans, wounding 3 more, and destroying the position. His gallant actions and dedicated devotion to duty without regard for his own life were in keeping within the highest traditions of the military service and reflect great credit upon himself and the U.S. Army. Most of these guys we do, it's an amazing act. This is just one after another.
And they're all badass. Like, a lot of them could be Medal of Honor.
And if you haven't noticed yet, I'm speeding through this. Because I have to be, because there's so much stuff. And there's so much I'm leaving out. And we haven't got to his Medal of Honor yet, which we're going to have to save for another day here. But at this point, we have Silver Star, Bronze Star, Distinguished Service Cross. He's got, if you count the bodies, they estimate by the end of the war, he killed or captured over 235 German soldiers. I think he was 19 years old when the war ended.
It's amazing, dude, that in like sports, there's basketball, there's Michael Jordan, you got Tom Brady in football.
Right.
And in battle, you have similar people that just have that
this guy
mind
thrived
for it.
on it. Yeah. Despite his physical weaknesses and despite his horrible upbringing, he took to battle like a fish to water.
And you can't really put your finger on what makes a person better. It's just like Jordan. If everybody plays basketball, why is he just a lot better than everybody? It's the same thing with these guys. Like,
I think that's a good analogy with this, because there's a lot tougher guys that died.
Wouldn't pick him.
There's guys just as skilled that died, but he's surviving every single time, right?
And a lot of people would say luck, but then, like you said, a lot of his luck is brought on by his instincts.
Well, it's not luck, because he has the skills, and he's, like I said, every interview I've ever seen with anyone that served with him, and I don't know how much of it is, built up over the years of looking back, but they always talk about he crouched when he ran, and he could move as fast in a crouched run as standing upright, right? And he could see things, and he could hear things.
But problem solving in the moment,
right? And he could sense the Germans, and he would look across, and he could see the foliage was dead, and he'd know that was a German position, and it's that 0 to 60. Like I said, he would take that initiative. There was no hesitation.
Right.
The machine guns would open up. Everyone would hit the ground and be trying to figure out what to do, and he'd already be on top of them. He'd already be, firing his rifle.
But you think of like a big soldier, you think of like a Jocko Willink type, a big muscle-bound meathead. And then a lot of these guys are like small, but they got the will and the freaking heart of just like a champion. You know what I mean? It's pretty amazing, dude.
So I got a lot of pages left here. Cool. I don't know if it's going to be
a 4-parter.
It might be a 4-parter. We'll see. We'll speed through the rest. But
okay, so that's part 2, Audie.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to talk so fast. I'm just trying to.
What have we learned from this point? Up to this point? Bullet points.
Recap on Audie.
Yeah.
So again, born into a poor, just destitute childhood. Father abandoned the family. Mother died when he was 16 years old. Children little brothers and sisters had to live in an orphanage. Joined the army, 5'5", 112 pounds. 17 years old. Lied about his age. Ended up in the operations in North Africa. He missed combat. Took part in the actions in Sicily, Salerno, Anzio, Operation Dragoon, southern France, into Germany.
Think about that one person
been wounded.
The history he's been a part of.
Been wounded once. He's got a Distinguished Service Cross, a Silver Star, a Bronze Star, and a lot of other promotions up to this point. Started as a private. By now, we're a staff sergeant, soon to be commissioned a lieutenant.
Wow. All right. We'll be back with part 3. Later.
See you next time.